I actually meant exactly what I said.
A lot of people would say Hikaru's talent is like, limitless as well, right? But if you listen to his evaluation of initial evaluation of positions, it's very often completely wrong.
Say for guys like Gukish, I mean, it feels like it's under control in a way that I don't see him suddenly falling in love tomorrow. Or Fishy is still top 10. I have a feeling if Fishy will start playing tomorrow, I mean, I don't think too many bad things will happen to him, frankly. Your instincts, in some ways, they probably depend on your general level of confidence.
If there's anyone who pushes better positions in the world, like the best player, it has to be Magnus.
I didn't even come up with some fake excuse. I simply said, I'm going to have a vacation, maybe next time. Yeah, I mean, Magnus will not go anywhere. So.
Boom. Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the C Squared podcast. Today we have a very special episode and a very special guest. He's one of the most creative players in the world. He's one of the most outspoken. He's worked with Magnus Carlsen. He's been a world champion. He is, of course, a man that needs very little introduction, and that is Daniel Dubov. Daniel, welcome to the show. Welcome to C Squared. Obviously, it's a pleasure to have you.
Yeah, hi guys. Thank you for having me. I mean, it only took me coming here to sort of switch a mood from calling me an idiot for calling Fabi as the least talented player or something. Yeah, now you're sort of back to thinking I'm a nice guy.
Excellent. I was actually about to start with that topic. I think it's better to get it out of the way as fast as possible and contextualize, because I understand we probably didn't give the whole context, but it was a very long interview that you did with Greg. But give us your take on that. What did you mean by that comment, and how do you view this discussion about talent?
Yeah, I think first of all, Fabi and I, we had some private talk about this, because I thought I have enough enemies not to make a new one for no reason, sort of. So I texted Fabi. No, I actually meant exactly what I said. You guys actually stopped the video. I mean, I think you did show part of this interview with Greg on your podcast.
We did.
You actually
did.
But
not the whole thing.
Yeah, you did stop it exactly where I'm about to sort of come up with a bunch of compliments for Fabi. So no, that's exactly what I meant. It's it's just that I really admire and sort of respect Fabi's work ethic, and I think that for normal human beings, this is like me, this is way more inspiring than say Magnus example, who simply seems to be capable of doing the things that many people cannot do, no matter how much they work. I mean, I have a feeling we're about to sort of get back to this fighting mood, here.
No, absolutely not. I don't think so. I don't think so.
Yeah, I think Fabi and I, we sort of understood each other. I kind of agree that it's basically hard to really determine what talent is. That is true, especially when we're not talking about young players. Still, I think, and we had this in our private talk too, I think basically if for some reason you say that if you start asking people, most of them would name Magnus as first and then maybe Alireza, that probably means that there is some common, at least understanding on what the talent is. Maybe you cannot really determine it, but you can sort of feel it. For me, indeed, I also listened actually to Hikaru's reaction for some reason. I don't know why. Hikaru, for some reason, said on my behalf that I obviously meant that more talented player means better Blitz player, which of course I did not, and it's a bit weird sort of way to rephrase it. But yeah, I think we're all talking about pretty much the same thing. We're talking about instincts, we're talking about what crosses your mind first, and for some reason I agree with Fabi, there is no rational explanation to it. But for some reason, when most of the people say talent, they normally talk about instincts and general chess intuition, and they normally don't mean, let's say, the work ethic, the physical shape, the like ability to come up with opening ideas and all of that. Also, I agree that maybe like first few are maybe like more shiny sort of ingredients of of your portrait of a chess player, but yeah, I agree that they're not necessarily the most important skills. At least I cannot prove it, and frankly, I'm not even sure about it.
Fabi,
So that's what I call talent.
your take on talent? I feel like we've done this before, but would you like to reiterate your
I
stance?
think, well, first of all, I think there's a lot of common ground, things that we agree on. And also, I haven't worked with Magnus. I've discussed chess with him, but usually in quite limited, capacity, a few sentences after a game and so on. But it is clear, even from brief talks, that he almost always gets to the heart of the position, even if, of course, he's not always making the right decisions. But his evaluation is usually more accurate than anyone else, and so on. And this is definitely something that you can work on. Of course, you can work on your intuition, and he worked a lot on chess. But there is like some degree of you can't completely get to his level no matter how much work you do, as you mentioned, right? And and I haven't seen this from other players to the same extent, like just the natural kind of feeling of where am I sitting at in this position, and more or less what's the right like initial intuition, as you mentioned. But also I think that for a lot of people it would maybe be a bit of a different sort of definition. So that's why I think it's a little bit subjective, because a lot of people would say, you brought up the example of Hikaru. A lot of people would say Hikaru's talent is like limitless as well, right? But if you listen to his evaluation of like initial evaluation of positions, it's very often completely wrong in a way that Magnus doesn't tend to do in vast majority of cases. And same for Ali Reza. So I that's why I was kind of getting at, like, your definition of talent will be different than someone else's, and if we're having some vague definition, it might also be that we're not even talking about something objective anymore.
Yeah, for sure.
I would say it's
No, still I'd say like maybe two most popular sort of ways to determine talent would be like either Magnus like evil skills, or when they talk about like Ali and Nakai, it's probably like about the combination of speed and quality in some like crazy dynamic positions. I mean, I have to admit, generally when Ali is down to like 5 seconds in some crazy position and he plays like 10 best moves in a row, I mean, it is impressive.
But this tactical vision, I would say, it also has this this notoriety around the chess world, right? It's a bit sexier, let's say, than strategical or positional understanding that players like Magnus
that's
exhibit,
what I call
right?
shiny. That's exactly what Fabi was saying. It's probably like more sort of normal for amateur players to
understand, right?
To admire those skills, but it doesn't make them really more important. That is true.
So what do you feel like
that Ali Reza's? I mean, I've watched a lot of these Blitz tournaments, also participated sometimes, but also watched a lot of them, and it also played against for example, Hikaru and Ali Reza, and getting down to the last few seconds against Ali Reza, for example. Even if there are a lot of mistakes, mutual mistakes by both sides, he's very often coming out ahead, just somehow, and you can't even put your finger on why it happens, because it could be like even mutual blunders, but maybe his opponent makes the final blunder. And this is definitely a big skill, which it might not even manifest in classical chess, because you get 30-second increment and you kind of avoid the like really major blunders for the most part. But definitely in shorter time controls, when you have either 2 or 5 or 10-second increment, then his like ability to turn around positions, or to or to fight back is pretty much up there with Magnus, and maybe you also put Hikaru in the same category.
Yeah, I would say Ali is like very good at basically making things go like out of control for both. it does not necessarily mean he will win, but it's true that against him, like those solid draws, even if he wants them, they're sort of less likely. It's kind of harder to keep things under control, and in some sense, it's almost easier to beat him than to make a draw sometimes. And yeah, this is kind of impressive. I mean, he can be black, and he will still force pretty much like everybody, except for maybe Magnus, maybe like Fabi, but like it's a very, very short list. He will sort of force everybody to play like a crazy three result game. Well, crazy to some extent, but still.
Well, also
yeah,
Magnus, I mean, like he's done this to Magnus recently. I think maybe Magnus also kind of embraces it a little bit. Like he doesn't shy
Magnus
away from it.
In
kind
Norway?
of lets him play. Yeah, I mean, I have this feeling too.
That was my impression, because they almost always get like some full-fledged fight, and then it turns into a mess, like almost regardless of how it starts, in some mutual time scramble. But I had the feeling that, okay, Magnus also really likes this against Alireza specifically, and he's kind of happy to go for maybe playing a bit into his strengths as well.
Yeah. But Magnus can always switch back to. I actually experienced it myself. I mean, when he switches back to the solid mode, it sort of becomes very, very difficult. Like we used to play a lot, and especially we played a lot when this like COVID happened, and this first season of Magnus Store, and then the second season we played a lot. I actually won a lot of games. I think the score was sort of even after like maybe 20 games or like 24. I was probably even ahead, but he would always let me play. I mean, I could see that he would always sort of whatever I do, he kind of goes for it. And same with like Ali or Jan, let's say. I remember him like experimenting playing Nidorf in every single game, and so on. But then at some point he simply stopped, and then he switched to like always playing something super solid with black, and playing something very solid with white as well. And then I started to struggle because when you play well, you make those draws, but I mean it becomes like incredibly difficult to sort of get the guy like out of his fortress. Yeah, I mean he will win like a game here and a game there thanks to his like endgame skills or some time troubles. He'll be better. But forcing him to like play a really sharp game when things go out of control is very, very hard when he doesn't want it. With Ali, it seems to be a bit of both. Ali is good at it, but also Magnus doesn't seem to be really avoiding it all the time.
What would you attribute this difference of styles of top players? Would you say that it's something related to their personality? Is it something related to the way they train in their foundational, let's say, process early in their careers? What would you attribute it to, this difference in styles?
Yeah, to me it feels like normally you're pretty much the same person in real life. That style you have, I like, at least for me it works, and I think for most of the people sort of works. Yeah, I don't know, Fabi, what do you think? To me it kind of has I mean, normally the chess style and the lifestyle have something in common, no?
Yeah, I can't speak to the personality of like most players. I don't know all of them personally so well. Like for me, I think to some degree it does. Like my strength is also my weakness in chess. I mean, I'm kind of like creating chances, but also losing control very often in how I create chances. Um, in some ways, maybe similar to how Alireza is doing things. Like he's creating chances very well, but also he's not like keeping control in the way that let's say Wesley, right? He's just always keeping control, yeah. And maybe in life you'd say the same, yeah. Like Wesley doesn't seem like a guy who's going out of control in general.
Yeah. And Ali feels like there is some mess there for sure, yeah.
Or at least some adventurous nature, yeah, in some ways. So
yeah.
that could be. And also with Maxime, if you consider him like kind of logical and mathematical guy, then his chess also follows this more or less accurately.
Yeah, but then he obviously likes to gamble at chess, and I mean he also has this sort of like adventurous quality at life, it seems, yeah, as well.
And that applies to his wild side in chess also, right? He enjoys those type of positions.
Exactly, yeah. So there are probably exceptions, but generally I think people remain the same over the board and out of the board.
Now, do you think related to talent after a certain, stage in your development, do you feel like other items are added to, let's say, this talent, like hard work, preparation, stamina, physical fitness, and so on and so forth? And if yes, what, in your opinion, are those items that get added to talent?
Basically, everything Fabi has, yeah. That's sort of exactly what I was talking about when I said that in that sense Fabi is an inspiration. Like, I wasn't joking, I wasn't trolling either, and indeed I didn't. I mean, I wasn't even close to meaning it as an insult. That's, yeah, I mean, exactly. Say, like, talent is probably, I mean, you need it for sure. And obviously, like, all the people in like top 50 are talented compared to the rest. Generally, I mean, it works this way. But then, of course, I mean, some people just rely on talent and maybe like a couple of creative opening ideas. And some people, so they, like, I don't know, they go to the gym, they have a routine, they try to control, say, for me, this is the hard thing, they sort of try to control their personal life the ways that it does not really affect their chess. I mean, of course, it's always difficult, but for me, for instance, it really very much depends on the mood. Generally, when I'm happy and tired, I play much better than when I'm sort of sad and rested, So this is also
That's interesting.
This is also a thing.
Do you feel that that's the case with everybody? How about yourself, Fabi? Do you feel like mood has a big impact on your performance?
Yeah, I kind of always wondered about this because, like, from my childhood when I was playing tournaments, it was usually under a lot of stress and pressure, and I think I got used to that, maybe to the point that um, kind of later on I was able to handle it. That it doesn't, of course, it's better not to be stressed or tired or sick or all these things, or just to be depressed like this. Maybe this is the worst thing if you have no motivation.
Exactly, yeah.
But at least, yeah, I think this is probably the worst. At least for me, if I have no motivation, then yeah, I can easily play really, really poorly. Um, but stress, maybe I managed it that it doesn't tank my level completely if I'm stressed out during a tournament, which usually happens, right? Chess is inherently kind of stressful.
I think this is what
But it can
Krishuk
also
was saying, right? He was basically saying that you need stress in this
you need
type
a
of
degree of
fighting.
it, but
Yeah.
obviously not too much. I mean, you like let's say if you're going through a divorce or something, then probably you're stressed out to a degree which is not gonna definitely not gonna help your chess, right?
Yeah.
Still, it's better to be stressed than to sort of be constantly depressed, yeah?
Yeah, that's no, I mean, like the motivation aspect is very important. If you're not able to look at chess, I had this period too in like 2020. I
Yeah.
just was sick of chess. Then it leads to a decline. Like maybe not immediately, but it'll lead to like clear decline in quality and results, I think.
Yeah, to me, I mean, it has always been the way that chess sort of feels like a luxury to me. Like, generally, when you're not like 17 anymore, you sort of understand it's hard to deny that, I mean, life is much bigger than chess is. And then for me, like, I would say my mood, like, generally, I mean, maybe not 80%, but like 75% of my mood is not related to like chess. And then it's like, yeah, when everything is okay, then you're kind of happy enough to spend some like time and like inner strength on your like favorite game or hobby or like, I don't know, sport, job, call it whatever you want. But still, it's easier when you sort of don't need to waste your like emotional resources for the rest of your life. And the other way around too, of course.
Actually, this
Like
is a
for
very
me, for
interesting.
instance, normally when I'm depressed, it kind of makes me tilting passively. I mean, I know that basically it's hard for me. It sort of becomes harder for me, let's say, to play like really big games against the best players. And then I normally switch to the mode that, like, all right, you have to deserve it. Like, I will not give it for free, like never. But I mean, I also I mean, in 2019, let's say, when I played like all the guys, I played this Grand Prix, I played Grand Chessur. Let's say you play Hikaru, you're like, all right, I'm white. Let's actually play a sharp game, do something stupid in the opening, and see where this goes. And I mean, if you win, you win. If you lose, there is another game tomorrow, and life is generally good. Then when you're depressed, it's like exactly the opposite. You feel like, all right, I'm depressed anyway. I don't want to lose. If I get this like equal sharp position, like mathematically speaking, I don't think it sort of increases my chances. Probably increases his actually. And actually, why would I make this gift? Let's let him. I mean, if he wants to play, whatever, play your Persian, play, yeah? I mean, Fabi probably had this actually experience of playing me when I was like ultra solid in this Catalan. Yeah, like I would never try to kill the game completely, but also I would like always underline that sort of, yeah, if you do something crazy, we will play, but I'm not going to do it first. Then when I'm in a good mood, I can actually do it myself. So this is the difference for me.
I felt from our game.
Go ahead, Fabi.
That sorry, Christian. I felt from our games that like, of course, the Catalan, yeah, it can be solid, but if I'm ready to like be a bit combative with black, you'll also take up the challenge, and then we'll get something which can easily go out of control. Like this was kind of my feeling that the game can go either way. It depends also on our moods.
Sure, but it's not like I'm in this crazy alley mood. Yeah, I mean, it's not that I will like insist with both black and white. I will insist on like playing this crazy game. Yeah, I mean, I'll just play, and I mean, okay, if it happens, we play a sharp game and we see where this goes. Let me, by the way, before I forgot it, let me share this funny story about Fabi's lack of talent.
Go ahead.
This is like this was actually hilarious. I think we played some game entitled Tuesday. I mean, we played a lot. Let's just let the people know that actually I think with Fabi it's probably my worst score. Like whatever I say, you should understand that Fabi is like I'm probably on like minus, I don't know, 6, 7, something like that. So yeah, but there was this fantastic game in Rui Lopez. It was so funny. Like you played this Rui Lopez with d3, and I went b5 bishop b5 bishop c5, and you played this like sharpest thing with bishop g5. And at some early stage, I went h6, bishop h4, king f8, which actually makes a lot of sense. But you probably didn't realize that like it was not a misclick, and you actually went king f1. And then I was like, Jesus, I played yeah, I was like, Jesus, I played a very good move. He doesn't even understand it's not a misclick. Yeah, come on.
I remember this. I just like automatically.
He wanted to return the favor.
I texted you after the game. I remember that you know this was actually meant to be king f8. Yeah, this was really hilarious. And the guy goes king f1. Yeah, sure.
I think I was like losing 2 moves later. Yeah, and then I was like, why did I do this?
Yeah.
I remember thinking this during the game, but yeah, I didn't even like think about the move you were playing. It just looked unusual. But then, what was interesting, like more recently, okay, it was probably even years after this game was played. But then I noticed that in the Italian you can basically just play king f8, and then it's like you castled, but your rook's on h8, like you play g5,
yeah,
king
exactly.
g7.
And
it's extremely. It's like extremely decent and maybe one of the better approaches for black against these bishop g5 lines. So, but then
yeah, it's like you sort of castle, but you don't let them the like immediate checkmate attack. Yeah, and yeah.
Anyway, the rook is better on h8 in many lines.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's just funny you brought that up.
Yeah.
I did want to stay on that topic because I think you made a very good point about somewhat being naive when you're young. I've noticed this with a lot of players. They get to like 26, 70, and they have all this like wind in their sails, maybe even like 27, 30. But then somewhat they plateau, and then they get to like 22, 23 years of age. They don't make that push to the elite. And then they have a bad tournament. They go back to like 26, 70, and that's basically where they stay for the rest of their career. Talk to me a little bit about this sort of naive feeling that you need to have in order to be able to push through that plateau. Have you thought about that?
I actually don't think you need to be naive. I think you need exactly the opposite. I think actually what is naive is to think that
Because you said you're thinking about life, 70-80% of the time instead of, chess. For example, Fabi, I know he thinks about chess much more than that, I would say. At least that's my understanding.
Yeah, I mean, generally, of course, it's better to be... I mean, for your chess, it's better to be focused on chess as much as you can. Say for guys like Gukish, I mean, it feels like it's under control in a way that I don't see him suddenly like falling in love tomorrow, or I don't know, or like I don't know, gambling or finding like a dozen of different hobbies that he wants to do and stuff. So I mean, in that sense, it sort of helps, but it's harder to maintain this sort of attitude when you're not 17 but like 25 or something. Say for the Russians, I think it's a very common story, and I mean, it happened to me as well. It happened to Jan. It happened, I think, to some extent to Yesipenko actually. Fedosеев, basically, pretty much all the like strong Russian players went through it. That, I mean, you're sort of talented and you're a very promising player, and then say you get somewhere, basically thanks to your talent, and you kind of get a feeling, say for me, like I was not really working on chess like before I got to, I don't know, at least 2660, I would say, for the first time, maybe even more. And then you get this feeling that it's going to be smooth all the way, basically. And then two things happen. Like, first of all, at some point, people actually start taking you seriously, which happens very often to those young guys, that they don't actually understand that they sort of got to 27-20. Yes, they played well, but it's also because like everybody was almost trying to beat them on demand. Then when you kind of maintain your 27-20, people stop being crazy against you. And then it's much harder to get a game, it's much harder to create chances, and generally people start taking you way more seriously. And then at the same time, actually, I mean, at least in Russia, life happens. So this is like exactly when you're like 18, 19, 20, this is exactly like normally when you start living alone, when you probably start dating someone. And I mean, you kind of need to go through your sort of introduction to like a really like adult life. And these two things together actually slow down your progress a lot, to say the least. And this, I think, is what happened, let's say, to Yesipenko as well, who was, I think, 2730s, and he went back to like 26, maybe 50, and now he's back to 2700 again. Same happened to Jan, who was, I think, like 2730, maybe when he was like 19. Then I remember when he was, I think, 24, he was like 2690 or something. But this is, I mean, it's sort of normal. You kind of need to like adjust your chess to your like new normal personal life. And yeah, for us, as this life is sort of like tricky, and you don't like normally in I mean in Russia you don't necessarily have a head start, it actually becomes a problem, and it takes I mean it took like all of us like few years to actually make things work and sort of realize what the life is about and what we're supposed to do in order to play chess really well.
Once you realize that, how many years do you feel you have left in order to make that push to 2780 or whatever?
I don't know. I mean, it's not something that is on my mind. I don't know. I mean, we'll see. Generally, I would say I have a feeling. Again, I'm actually interested at what Fabi has to say here. I have a feeling that generally, not only in chess, but in sports in general, I think people started to have way longer careers. I don't know, like maybe like in some of them it has to do with like new medications or something like that. But even in chess, I think it sort of becomes a thing. Like Vishy is still top 10. I have a feeling if Vishy will start playing tomorrow, I mean, I don't think too many bad things will happen to him, frankly.
What do you think,
And yeah, go ahead.
Well, I think I can't speak to other sports too much. I mean, definitely some, like maybe some drugs or other techniques can increase longevity. I mean, we see like, okay, Djokovic is playing into his late 30s without major injury, right?
Yeah.
But okay, with chess, of course, there's like no physical component. So, you know, let's say if you keep motivation, then theoretically, why should your career end when you're, when you're 45 or 50? Although it does tend to happen, like people lose motivation for one reason or another. I'm in the age and position where I can understand why someone would lose motivation and also not like fully lose motivation, but also not have the same motivation as, you mentioned Gukesh or Arjun who maybe are ready to sit there 10 hours a day every
Exactly.
day
Yeah.
and also not worry about anything else that's going on in their life because they're young and well, they don't have kids, let's say they live with their family and so on, and it's just easier. There's nothing wrong with that. I mean, I also had that when I was in my late teenage or early 20s that I didn't have to worry about anything. I would also travel with my father, and there was nothing really on my mind besides whatever chess game I have to play. Uh, but then motivation is still like is a factor, yeah, because we can see it to some extent with Magnus, with Hikaru, definitely with like the older generation than them, and they're only in their early to mid 30s, right? It's not like they're not 70 years old, but still at some point they're thinking about things besides chess, and then this takes away from your motivation to just sit there and work, which like I think Magnus doesn't have to work 10 hours a day to keep his level super, super high, and probably other players as well. But to like maximize your chances, you you do have to be at least kind of singularly focused and not too thinking about, family, kids, or whatever is going on in your life, business, perhaps like other business ventures. Um, like with Vichy, I don't I mean I'm sure that he could maintain like good 27 maybe mid 2700 level if he was working consistently, but he has no reason to do that. So like it's also understandable why would he want to do that? And then if he played 100 games a year, I don't think he would keep his rating just because he's not going to have the energy or motivation to do that. And then he's going to probably have thoughts in his head like, why am I going through this? I've done this for 30 to 40 years. Why am I continuing to do this to myself? Um, but outside of the motivation thing, like that's going to be a bit personal. And I think like why should someone's career be ended just because they're 35, 45 years old?
But it is actually an interesting topic. So you basically think it's not physical at all, yeah? I mean, you don't think your brain sort of gets older or anything like that. You generally think that it's all motivation. There is no basically difference between like 30 years old and 50 years old player. I mean, in terms of their sort of what they're capable of doing.
I mean, I think there's going to be differences. Of course, I'm not like neuroscientist or anything, so I can't speak as an expert. But there's going to be differences which are also beneficial to the older player.
Like what?
And so I don't know if like all of it is negative. Some of it will be negative. Like for me, what I find difficult, which I found was one of my strengths when I was younger, is that like I would be able to keep the concentration at the board and just fighting for every opportunity for a full game until the game is over. I wouldn't like let basically my concentration drop at all. And now it happens, not always, but for like singular moments in the game, for like 5 minutes a game. But okay, this is very, very could be a very important few minutes, right? That basically I relax a little bit, and I think it's a bit individual because I've seen sometimes players who, I played a game recently with a young player, and I could just tell from his body language that the tension kind of released a little bit because he thought he was surviving. But there was still like one more issue to solve in the game, and then he faltered at this moment, right? And for me, that was never an issue, but now it's kind of like I can relax a little bit and then make some mistake if the game is going on super long.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, generally I had the same feeling, but like I remember myself when I was like 17 or 18, there are definitely things that are sort of easier for me now. But there are things when I was, let's say, down to seconds, I'm still pretty good. But like even like all the, I mean, this whole like world blitzing and stuff, like I generally do well there. But I remember, let's say, when we played in Qatar, I think I finished third. I played like very well, but I was a completely different player back then. Like I would always trick people with seconds left and stuff. Whereas now it's more like you simply control it the way that it doesn't go there.
Yeah, I
Still
mean,
doesn't make me like a better blitz player or a worse blitz player, but it's a completely different player anyway. Yeah.
No, I'm interested also your experience in this because that's also my feeling in some ways. Uh, like let's say if I compare my rating now to 10 years ago, okay, it's about the same, let's say. So I guess I can say I didn't really improve or deteriorate as a player, but I'm completely different as a player. Like just everything I think is different. My
Yeah, I
how
think
I
so too.
approach.
That's true.
Um, yeah, I think it's very very interesting. Also for Blitz and Rapid. I mean, for classical you can kind of see it more clearly, I guess. We're
I think
focusing
so.
like
Yeah, I think it's exactly the opposite actually. Like for me, it is the opposite.
you feel your style in Blitz has changed more drastically, yeah?
Nah, I think Blitz basically shows you your sort of change of the mindset. It sort of underlines it. Like in the classical, like normally there are not too many spots where you're going to make a different decision. I mean, of course they exist, but in Blitz, it's just that sometimes you can spot that simply your instincts have changed. And it's like sometimes I was, let's say, pretty good in 2016. I mean, I finished third. I mean, I went really well. But let's say when I look at the games from 2016, I mean, some of them impress me. Some of them I look at it. I mean, there is no way I was like this bad in some certain positions. Like some of the things that are obvious to me now, were not back then, and the other way around. I mean, it's kind of hard to like. I have a feeling. Let's say generally, I was way more like the dynamic positions. I probably played even better back then, maybe even much better actually. But part of it is that like there was no choice. Like I knew I'm going to be outplayed otherwise. Now it feels exactly the opposite. Yeah, I mean, I can be solid. Yeah, I mean, if someone plays a fantastic game, I mean, sure, you will beat me, but it will not come for free. Whereas back then, I almost felt like it's either I go do something crazy and then we gamble, or I'm just getting outplayed if it's like a very very strong player. Now it doesn't feel this way. I always feel like yeah, like do your bishop e7 Italian. I mean, it's slightly worse. It's under control. I mean, as long as you play it reasonably, you're not going to lose and stuff. Yeah, this is like a completely different attitude, of course.
This is also like a product of us just knowing more about chess, right? I mean, like
It's
we have
experience
less to
for sure.
figure out. No, not even experience, but just we have less to figure out. Like you mentioned bishop e7 Italian. I mean, like you can work a few days on this and more or less get a very, very good feeling of positions and what to do, especially for like fast time controls. And, 10 years ago, it would take you significantly more time if you even were able to like make it work back then.
Yeah, that is true. But my point is that your instincts, like in some ways, they probably depend on your like general level of confidence. Say like 10 years ago, like 8 years ago, I would like generally, I would always be looking for some like attacking chances and some like tactical shots. As generally, I would feel that like otherwise it's a bad scenario for me. Now it's like exactly the opposite. I know that, I mean, as long as it's solid, like I'll generally do well in the long run. And I sort of do exactly the opposite. Yeah, I start by like making sure I have a solid way, and the mindset changed. Yeah, I probably even avoid some complications, especially against I mean, some of the players that are not exactly the best in the world. You feel like, okay, as long as I keep the tension and the pieces are not flying, it's all right.
Yeah, no, I think this is like, especially when it comes to playing weaker players, I think this is the best strategy. It took me some time to like realize that, you know, especially in Blitz, that like controlling yourself, because I always thought, okay, Blitz is Blitz, whatever, for a long time, just random and we'll play. And I wasn't putting too much thought into strategy behind how I'm playing. And then I realized that, yeah, there is like definitely a lot of strategical considerations that you can make. And one of them is going to be that if you keep the tension against weaker player, it couldn't, I mean, depending on someone's level, they can decide how much weaker they're thinking. But let's say against someone you think is weaker, that if you keep the tension for a long time, this is going to increase your chances. Just because at some point something goes wrong for them. It's
Yeah,
sort of
for
the same
sure.
way.
You simply bounce it back and it normally works after like 5 moves. Yeah, exactly.
It might take like a long time, like maybe in 30 move game, if some kind of crisis happens early on, then you're not going to show any superiority, and maybe it's a draw or whatever, or you can lose, of course. But in like long game, the only issue is that, of course, if it's a long game, then it tends to go to seconds, and then it does get a little bit random.
Yeah.
Would you say?
But this is basically what happens when both play well. Yeah, that's like exactly. I mean, that's exactly a good blitz game. Yeah, when like both play well, like until they're both down to like 5 seconds, and then something happens.
How do you feel
Or
your
very
speed
badly.
was affected? Let's say in the last since 2016, because you mentioned that quite a few times. How would you say your speed, your reaction time changed throughout the years? Do you feel that your experience allows you to make decisions faster, or do you feel like due to age you're getting a bit slower? Because that kind of relates to the discussion about whether you get better as you age in chess.
Yeah, my feeling is that my calculation became slower, and also sort of my will to look for tactical shots when I'm down to seconds. Also, I mean, not to be like overestimated anymore. I mean, I have this tactical vision, but like if I don't see it immediately, I normally don't find it, let's say, which was not necessarily the case like 6-7 years ago. But at the same time, some of the like general understanding decisions are much easier for me now. And I think I became much more like in many ways like practical, and it sort of became my nature. Like, say, I remember we played, I watched the video recently, actually, like I was very impressed. So we played some like whatever, we played some Blitz tournament in Moscow. Like, it doesn't even matter like what the prizes are. We played some like Town Memorial or whatever. So I played Karyakin. And I mean, okay, we play like a sharp game. I'm white. I somehow played him. Then, like as always, he's down to like 20 seconds and lost. And you have a minute. Then he started to defend brilliantly. Then something happened. Then, like in the end, I have like a rook and bishop, and he has rook, knight, and pawn. And this pawn is about to be promoted, sort of like it's a black pawn on like g4, and at some point he goes g3, and I can take on g3 and give up the bishop, which like now I'm sure I do like 100% of the time, like against anyone even. I don't even think about it anymore. But back then I obviously saw it, but I sort of like I don't even know. I probably wanted to prove like I'm not even worse or something. I don't know. But the pawn actually promoted and I lost. And like this is the kind of decision that, let's say, from the practical point of view, what I did was obviously stupid, and I don't see it happening again when I'm like over 25, let's say.
Fabi, how do you feel?
Like I remember there was like it's a similar example. Like there was a game. I think Anish beat Gukish. You remember, Fabi? Is this opposite cover bishops thing 4 against 4?
Which tournament was that in?
Yeah, I don't remember, but like he basically had a choice. Like white has pawns, like say e3, f2, g3, h2, or whatever, and yeah, and the light bishop, and black has basically the dark bishop and a queen in a normal formation.
Oh,
and then
this classical game from Vikings A, yeah? This
yeah,
was with
yeah, and he could basically get like a normal 4 against 3 that you sort of never lose. Or he could play this like position with double pawns and equal number of pawns, trying to prove don't even know what exactly. And he did the second thing, which is exactly I mean, I can see myself doing the same thing if they go. You know, this is like pretty same that I did against Sergey. So those kind of things you simply don't like even consider anymore. Is my impression. Same, I think, actually goes to you. You sort of became way more, when it comes to defending, you sort of became way less principled in some sense and way more practical. Like if you know it's a draw, you actually take it. If you're slightly worse there, it doesn't matter, it's a draw. Like
Yeah,
you sort of always take a guaranteed draw from a worse position that can even take like 50 moves of like sort of suffering, but you're never going to lose, as compared to slightly sharper ways that probably works.
No, I learned this the hard way, and also like playing Magnus, I think I basically accepted a few times that I'll defend this forever as long as I'm pretty sure that he has no way of like using his abilities basically. Like the position is too dry for him to do anything. So even if it's enormous suffering, as long as it's like very, very or nearly 100% chance of draw, I'll take the suffering.
Yeah, exactly.
That was part of like I knew that I kind of would have to do that against him. So I learned a lot in terms of like defensive stuff from that match against Magnus.
Yeah, you actually did very well in that sense there.
Yeah, like if there's anyone who pushes better positions in the world, like the best player, it has to be Magnus. I think there can be like no debate that in terms of like pushing slightly better positions to their maximum, he's probably not even probably, just like definitely the most skilled. I was even like looking yesterday, he was playing Lazovic. And like more or less just nothing the whole game, just absolutely nothing. I mean, equal pawns, he just has like slightly better bishop, yeah, which more of Lazovic's pawns are on I guess it was dark squared bishops and like c5 structure against c4 b3 and some pawns on king side. And it's like eventually somehow it works out. I don't even know I couldn't pinpoint like what Magnus did that was good.
Yeah, exactly.
But I just know that other players wouldn't do it.
Yeah. Yeah, this is very annoying against him, that sometimes he loses the draws like without even like understanding where exactly the mistake happened. Like when you just blunder and resign, you sort of understand that you're an idiot and you know what went wrong. Yeah, but when you just lose some very, very dry positions, like without making an obvious mistake, it's kind of annoying.
I do want to stay with that topic, the cooperation of you and Magnus, and obviously the preparation for the match and how that came to be. How did that come to be? Who contacted first? Of course, you don't have to divulge anything if you don't want to, but how did that cooperation came to be? Because you were kind of like the wild, let's say, the dark horse in their team. Like we didn't know about you going into that match.
Yeah, no, there is nothing secret there. I think I got to know him a little personally when we played the World Cup in Georgia. And I think, I mean, of course, we knew each other. We played like a couple of games before, but I think we like barely shared the word before that. And then, then after he was out, he lost against Bus and G. I think I won exactly the same day. And like the very next day was supposed to be the day of tiebreaks. So I had a free day. And he was out. And like for some reason, but this is again, I was young and optimistic. Yeah, now I mean, I don't see myself doing this. Also, there is nothing wrong with that. It's just that like a completely different thing can cross your mind when you're like young. I simply approached him for no reason and sort of offered him to play some blitz with basically zero introduction and for basically no reason, just because I like to play blitz a lot. And I actually think that the whole idea of blitz making harm to your play is, I mean, at least questionable.
It's nonsense.
There is of course a limit, but generally I don't think playing like 10 to 16 blitz games a day, like not bullet games, but blitz games a day really hurts you. Play even when you're playing classic or tournament. I mean, I did this many times. I mean, it could go very well, it could go wrong too, but it kind of, for me, it kind of makes sense. And yeah, for some reason he said yes. And we just played like 30 minutes later. I think we played like in his hotel room. Yeah, I mean, okay, we talked, there were some jokes and stuff. He seemed to be sort of surprised a little bit with my level. Like, of course I lost, but I was not even close to being crushed. And then I think a few months after that, they invited me to some camp, which I think I had a fantastic reason to say no. I simply told PH, like I didn't even come up with some like fake excuse. I simply said, I'm going to have a vacation, maybe next time. Yeah, I mean, Magnus will not go anywhere. So. Which I think
that's that's interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. I was like, okay. I mean, a vacation is planned. Yeah, I mean, I didn't have the tickets even back then, but I had a plan. Yes, so Magnus can wait. And then
do you feel like that enticed him even more to get you on the team? That refusal?
Yeah, maybe. maybe, but then then they actually invited me to be part of the team for the match against Fabi, so there was nothing in the middle. And yeah, of course it was out of the blue for me. And I said yes, and it turned out to be a win-win, I think, in the long run.
How's a typical day in a Magnus camp? Like, what do you guys do? Because obviously the stories are that, there's a lot of allocated time to sports, right? Like 80% of the time you play sports, you chat, you play blitz, you have a good time, and then you guys work a lot outside of that. But Magnus is a little bit more jumpy,
true,
let's say,
but
between topics.
First of all, there are two kinds of camps in Magnus team, and let's say, at least, I don't know, 33%, we would normally have without him, which would always lead to basically only looking at chess.
Those are more serious, yeah?
Those are more lazy, I would say. It's hard to convince Mr. Gustafsson and Mr. Hessene to go play football when there is no Magnus to push them, yeah? And we would basically just look at chess. What I liked a lot is that I think this is how, generally, this is how things should be done. Is that, normally, at least for me, I would be given some big topic, and I would be given, at least a couple of days, sometimes more, to sort of get a clue. And for this, 3 days, basically, nobody bothers you. You can just say, all right, I'm on it, and I'm working on it. Then 3 days later, you can think, all right, maybe I have a little idea on what's going on there. But then again, we're actually talking about 2018.
Yeah, things were different.
Yeah, completely different tensions. Yeah, because I remember looking at this Rosalimos and Sveshnikovs, especially with 95. I actually remember when I came to the camp, the first thing I said to them that 95 is actually the main worry, in the Sveshnikov, which back then was, as Fabi probably remembers, it was kind of far from obvious. Now it's like a must, and basically as only a tempo white. Back then, I think there were yeah,
that we should go for Sveshnikov. Even this was a big decision, that we can actually go in this direction. I was thinking, okay, Rosalimo is just the way at the start. Before the match, Rosalimo is the way for first 2 days of the match, and then at some point it was okay, maybe this 95, it really is the direction. I think things have even changed a lot since then, theoretically, but even that just that realization was quite a big one.
Yeah, but I had it few months before. Actually, back then it was very fresh. I think there were few games of your actually current second Toparian. But it was but it was really fresh, I think. And yeah, I had this feeling too that actually the engine would be happy with black, but yeah, I started to feel it's actually way more tricky than people think, yeah. So in that sense, we were prepared. Of course, it was hard to be ideally prepared for 95, but at least we had a very certain clue that, yeah, 95 is a very, very big move. And it's just as serious as Rosalimo. But it's kind of funny, looking back at at this match, it's kind of funny how stupid we were and engines were, and say this thing that Magnus played in the first Rosalimo with 97. I came up with it, but also I came up to the realization very early that it only makes sense if you include the stupid h3.
And which was the common wisdom.
Yeah,
right?
Which was the main move back then. And I remember at the session I would ask them, okay, but why h3? Why do they go h3? No, h3 they will go, that's the main move. If you're good with h3, we're good. I was okay, I'm good with h3, but what if they do something else? Okay, we'll figure it out. Then I was actually the one to figure it out during the match. Then this queen c7 happened, yeah. But even with queen c7, yeah, I think first there was this bishop g7, queen c7. Then at some point at night I actually realized it kind of makes sense to go queen c7 with a bishop on f8 in order to try to get this good Berlin, yeah. If you get a7 e5, you never go bishop g7 after that. But yeah, generally we were all a bit naive, yeah. I remember at some point we found out this in the Rosalimo with queen c7 exactly. We found out that actually a4 followed by knight fd2 is very, very strong. And I remember like we had to send the files like few hours later, and PH started panicking like, okay, we're busted here. Yeah, I mean, it goes to like 040. And like I had like literally maybe 40 minutes to come up with this like knight h6 f5, which actually I think it still remains like the only sort of acceptable reaction for black. And then we were like, okay, at least we were not losing the force. But yeah, generally it was a lot of joy, I have to say. I mean, it did feel like sort of like an intellectual competition in some sense. I mean, the prep part, and you could surprise us, and we could surprise you, and it was interesting, you know.
Yeah, I think that this is a little bit lost these days. Like
Yeah,
now it's become very practical, like everything's very fast. You just like prep things extremely quickly and you try to remember them and try to find some small idea that nobody has come up with, even if it's complete bullshit. Well, then it was really like trying to come to the truth of things. In opening wise, of course. I mean, still the actual game after the opening more or less remains exactly the same. But from opening point of view, like we were just sitting down and we were very proud when we found some like new direction, which now of course would just be shown absolutely instantly, and like the human
exactly. Yeah,
element is completely taken out. There's almost no discovery left. Only the discovery is like some maybe what did they not analyze or what don't they know, even if it's crap and the computer solves it in like 5 seconds. Okay, maybe still they won't know it and people screw up over the board. Um, but like when I found this, when I played against Magnus in QGD early on, this rook d8, like I was super proud when I found this one, and then it also worked out like extremely well over the board as well. But yeah, this like opening phase has changed so quickly, and so I mean I think 2020 was the year when it really kind of shifted dramatically.
yeah.
Were you guys
Also,
using
everybody needs a
anything
lot of time
else?
actually to look at things with Lila.
Exactly. Were you guys
And
using Lila at that point, or were you just like stuck on Stockfish?
I think the match was like few
Before the
months
match.
after.
Before the match. Because we were using it a little bit before the match, but we weren't really trusting it too much.
I think we did use it, yeah, but we sort of used it like in order to look for ideas. But I mean, again, we were not too
Yeah, I think we were
like
exactly
too
the same.
sure.
Yeah, more or less
But
the
it was
same.
actually funny that like back then you could actually have this like weird positions that like Stockfish would evaluate as like 0.70 and Lila would go like minus 0.20. And then when you let them play, like they play like for sort of games, you kind of choose directions. Then like it finishes like 2-2 in terms of opening battle, and you're still not sure. Like especially in Jerusalem, I remember there was or this 95 Sveshnikov. Yeah, Lila would always see this like kingside potential for black. I mean, it would always see it from far away, unlike Stockfish.
Yeah,
Yeah.
And
I thought this was very interesting.
yeah,
Like when we, because it was like the first version of Leela. Basically, um, it would blunder mate into
yeah.
sometimes. It couldn't win
Stalemates,
king
mates.
against,
Yeah.
you know, it would blunder pieces like consistently. But some positions, you know, it would evaluate as like significantly higher. Let's say you would get some kind of like French structure. You know, Leela would say 0.8, Stockfish would say, you know, zeros or minus 0.2, whatever.
Yeah,
And
something like that. Yeah,
then like you play through the moves, and then eventually you come to the point where you're like, okay, I understand exactly why Leela was correct from the beginning. And okay, now we should make sure that it doesn't blunder any pieces. But more or less, this was helpful for our understanding. Although I didn't get too much into like analytical part with this, because this was, I think we started using it only maybe 3 weeks before the match started, maybe a month. Uh,
No. We used it, I think, during the summer as well.
no, you're like we definitely only use it
Am
in
I
the last camp
misremembering?
after the Olympiad. Yeah, for sure. So
Maybe.
it was like, and then during the match, of course, then the guys were like using it exclusively for night, not exclusively, but for 95, basically, because it was uh, kind of giving hope. And a lot of these structures where like white achieves a4 b5 and then like backwards c pawn,
yeah.
like this Stockfish was had no idea, but then okay, now it's completely different. Like Stockfish immediately understands, of course, that the potential danger for black as well. But yeah, this was an interesting time to. I mean, I really always enjoyed this part a lot, this analytical part, and then recently it's a lot less fun. Like last few
Yeah, I
years.
mean, we used to have this sort of scientific part of joy, yeah, where you kind of you don't only find an opening idea, but you also actually figure out what the best move is. Like it was not that obvious. Yeah, I mean, I remember like also so many things I was really proud of. Like this, let's say, this like mainline Catalan with the sequence to b5, a4, b4, this 95 c5 was found before the match. Like so many things actually, which basically led Magnus to winning everything in 2019. Actually,
He
he was
beat
playing
him with
very very well, but also like people would struggle to get out of the opening against him, even with white sometimes. But yeah, I remember like you could be so proud. I mean, you found some idea that Stockfish would be like screaming that it's bad, and you managed to overrule it. Yeah, it doesn't happen anymore simply. And also for me, it's actually like I don't know about you, but for me, it's kind of weird because like in that sense, I'm sort of an older formation player, and for me, it's kind of hard to switch. Like I grew up as a player, like at the time when you could actually like your opening ideas actually could be best moves. So this was the like normal routines that you actually you look at some position and then you find some brilliant idea, and it is actually like at least just as good as the main line or sometimes even better.
Mhm.
And now it's I have to admit like I mean I understand that mathematically it kind of makes sense to go like I don't know like whatever one knight f3 b3 against someone or something like that, but like generally it's easier for some like 3 years old guys like Prague and so on, yeah, who basically came when there was no like the whole idea of like getting the like advantage objectively was very well forgotten. But we still remember this time, and for me it's kind of hard. Yeah, I mean I want to play like a good move on move one. I want to play a good move on move two, and I remember the time where you could actually get a better position by playing like 20 best moves. Yeah, and yeah, for me it's kind of. This is probably why actually I mean I almost do better with black, at least against strong players, because with black you can still find something like almost just as good that basically works, and you get the play on your own terms. Yeah, but with white I have to force myself to do something like really stupid that like exactly looks stupid. Yeah, I mean I kind of understand that c4 e5 knight c3 knight f6 a3 is playable, but it's just that my hand doesn't want it. Yeah, I mean I remember you can play normal moves, and
This
yeah.
approach changed.
How how would you say the match and your cooperation with Magnus change your approach to your career? Did it give you more motivation after the match, being a part of a winning team, or did it force you to change your priorities, or you know, stir you to force your priorities in any way now that you're more like a coach or
Not
anything of that
really.
nature?
Not really. No, I would say what was really important is that actually I got to play a lot against Magnus. So if we talk about me, you should actually understand that, I mean, it feels like I have been there for like many years, sort of. Like maybe not there, but around. But I actually only played, like I played 2 Grand Prix series. I played maybe a couple of Wikes. I mean, I didn't get to play too many games against the very best players. And actually when I played them, it was not that I was like exactly crushed, but I basically like even now it's kind of hard to me to figure out like who is better, who is not better, if someone is better, then how much better is he, and so on. And yeah, back then it was like exactly this. Okay, like when Magnus played Fabio, I think I had a record of maybe I don't know 25 games against 27 plus 100 players. And yeah, of course, for me, just playing him and sort of like looking at the score, looking at the like tendency was very helpful, because like at least I sort of got an idea on where I should belong. And of course, it was like inspiring that I mean, of course, he's fantastic, but like I was not sort of getting crushed, really.
How do you,
And I mean, of course, this kind of, I mean, you can do your math, yeah. You kind of figure out, okay, like I'm scoring, like we play this endless blitz, I'm scoring about like 35%, which actually against Magnus is a lot. You kind of realize actually not too many people will make more. When he plays like that, you think, all right, then I mean, it probably means I can actually play those people for sure. So this was the thing, like in terms of getting confidence, it was very important.
interesting, interesting. How do you rank yourself right now, and what do you feel you need to do better? Do you
I
need to
still don't
play
know,
more?
but
Do
I
you
need
need
to
to
play at least. I mean,
you need to
that's the
play more?
thing.
Yeah, is that the thing that you feel you're missing the most right now?
Yeah, probably. No, see, now I don't even know. I mean, also as a kids, they play like completely different kind of chess generally, and to sort of like feel their strength, you have to play them really. Say with Arjun, I remember like I played the game. I mean, we played this round, like strange round robin in China at the beginning of the year. I mean, again, like Anish was there, like Arjun was there. Okay, I beat Anish. I was completely winning against Arjun, like sort of outplayed him, but then he managed to survive. Like, not that I blundered, actually, he simply defended very well and survived. Still, I was not like too impressed. I kind of understand that this is part of the strategy. He will always find all the best moves, like in order to avoid the like direct kill. Still, I mean, it didn't feel to me that like something really changed or things are bad for me. But then again, they go play their like whatever Grand Chess Tour. I go play some candidate masters in Sochi and so on. So yeah, I'll probably, like I thought about it for quite some time. I'll probably give a shot to trying this like FIDE circuit, just in order to like not even. I mean, of course, I want to qualify, but it kind of makes sense to simply play like a lot of strong tournaments, because like I used to have this sort of issue that you are stuck in Russia. I mean, obviously with COVID and then later on war, you're not exactly the happiest person in the world. And then, I mean, you have to choose between, you can sort of go to Sochi for something like $10,000. You play like 5 games against like the average rating of 2,400. Or you can, let's say, go, like this is actually the real recent example, or you can go to Qatar Masters with like nothing guaranteed, and it can go anywhere. And yeah, I mean, as I've been depressed for quite some time, I would normally stick with my safe Sochi approach. Yeah, but next year, I don't know. I've finally started to feel it that, like emotionally, I'm kind of ready to play. It feels to me now, and I'm interested at like what's gonna happen. I mean, if I go play those like opens and they crush me, I mean, okay, fine. At least I tried, but I'll at least know. Because for now it's very mysterious. You basically like only play weak players, and you come to this like World Rapid and Blitz. You normally do like pretty well. Then you go back. Then you play like one like mid super tournament a year. You normally like play decent chess. Nothing really happens, and then the next year comes.
So it feels you
So
don't
this
have
was
a lot of feedback to understand your level.
yeah. No, I mean basically, if you look at my career, I can actually sort of retell it shortly the way I see it. Like I was basically improving. Then 2018, I think I got to 2700. I helped Magnus and I won this World Rapid. Then 2019 was by far the most interesting year. I was invited to the Grand Prix Syria. I played, I think, one Rapid and Blitz stage of Grand Chess Tour. I played some close, very strong closed event in Israel. There was a round robin, something else. I mean, I played a lot. It didn't go too well. Like, it didn't go too bad. Say, like in Grand Prix, I think I finished exactly on 50%. Like my first stage, I think I beat Anish in Classicals and I lost a tiebreak against Hikaru. Then the second stage, I lost, I think, against Shah in Classical. And the third stage, I beat, I think, Rajabov on a tiebreak, Svidler on a tiebreak, and then I lost against Dudo on a tiebreak. So this is
I
like
remember
exactly
watching this game, this match against Rajabov, because it
yeah. I
ended
was.
like completely
I mean,
crazy.
I could have lost every single game of it. I know.
Yeah, we were watching this, like I think it was during this Bucharest Rapid Blitz event. You played the one in
Yeah.
Paris previously, and then And then we were watching this because it was very relevant. Of course, the Grand Prix was direct qualification to candidates. And as we know, Jan was the one who was qualifying to candidates and even to the match later. But you had this absolutely crazy match against Rojava. It was like back and forth and almost always going to like final seconds each game. So we were watching with interest.
No, I mean, it wasn't back and forth. I think I was like lost for like 4 games straight. Then I won one game at Bliss and it was over, sort of. But I could have lost like four out of 4. Like I was never better even. I was lost every single game, but never better. But it has to be said, I mean, I couldn't really play this tiebreak, but there was a reason for it, yeah, because I think my daughter was born exactly the night before the tiebreak. So I made a short draw and we went to celebrate. So of course I was not too sort of, I mean, still managed to win it somehow. But still, I mean, so yeah, you have this result. So how do you sort of evaluate it? I don't know. I mean, it's not too bad. The pairing was obviously not ideal. Like I didn't get to play Navara or Hare Krishna with all the respect. I mean, to both. The pairing was obviously tough. I mean, you finish exactly on 50%. I don't know. But this was a year. Then 2020, suddenly we had COVID. I was invited to this Magnus tour, starting from the second tournament, which I actually managed to win, like from the first try. I mean, I won. Then I think the next one, I kind of played well, beat Magnus again. Something stupid happened. Like I think I was like on +2 in a group stage with 2 games to go, and someone told me that like I guaranteed the qualification. And then with Magnus, against Magnus, I actually decided to gamble in an equal position, being like completely sure my tiebreak is the best, and there is no mathematical chance of like not getting to the knockout. So I thought, let's try to beat him out. And then of course I lost. Then I have black against Hikaru, and then that someone told me that actually, you know, if you lose, you don't make it. And of course I lost. And we shared, I think, second, third, fourth, and I was fourth. All right, whatever. Then we played this grand final, which is the first thing that I found sort of like the general quality of play I found like a little bit suspicious. Then we played the second season of Magnus Tour, where I think like generally my suspicions increased. It's not that I even like accuse someone, but I think it's kind of fair. I mean, I don't have to go to court for saying it sort of became very hard for me to trust like everybody 100%. And then once you lose this feeling, it kind of sort of becomes absurd to play online, especially. I mean, it's a bit absurd to sort of look for the ideas for like online rapid games when you think it's not unreal that someone might cheat. So I played that year. It was like less impressive. Still, I think I won a match against Magnus. I mean, I played like reasonably well events. Then I texted them that if they keep it this way, I'll probably skip the next season.
What do you mean this way? Like inviting certain players, or like without cameras? Like what did you want improved?
I sort of like asked them to increase the anti-cheating measures generally, and I like specified one name that I thought is just like I was not the only one, you know. And
I think maybe we even have the same name in mind. It's of course very possible.
No, I mean, if you don't lose a game for a year, of course, I mean, you always make the list.
But I also skipped this, and even before, I mean, I played I think like 1 or 2 of the events, but overall kind of skipped it, and this was also one of the reasons. Not that I was like had any certainties, but just
me
that
neither. But it's just, I mean, it's
your
hard
mind, you don't want to play.
Yeah,
it just messes up your chess, and it even messed up my over the board chess. So I even wish I didn't play this one event that I did, or even I wish that I hadn't even looked at the games, because when you start to look and get all these ideas in your head, maybe even some are incorrect. Like I'm sure that I also went a bit overboard sometimes with my thoughts, but it completely messes your chess up.
Doesn't help. Yeah, I mean, no, exactly. Like we could be wrong. That's exactly what I'm saying. I'm not 100% sure. But the problem is that like not being 100% sure is already enough not to show your best. And actually, like for me, it's already enough not to be even like capable of showing like, I don't know, 85% of your best. Yeah, anyways, this was it. And then then the next year chess was sort of back. I was invited to the Grand Prix again. There were two stages. Like, we had this system that I find a little bit weird with group stages. Like, we would play double round robin. Like, each group was 4 people, 1 person qualifies. Then again, I played 2 stages. Like, the first one, again, I finished in my like 50%. Yes, I didn't win, but it's kind of hard. I mean, you only get to play 6 rounds. Yeah, and the second one, I mean, both times we played in Berlin. I think it was like literally like a couple of weeks after the war started. And then you live in the very center of like Berlin, like literally 100 meters away from the Russian embassy. And you can sort of like from your balcony, you can see the Russian flag being like burned out, like literally under my balcony, actually, because they used to have this like parades and stuff. And I mean, of course, it's kind of hard to play then. It's, yeah, I did not care too much, really, I have to say. And then this was it, sort of. Then yeah, also I think my first stage was right after we played this Wike, where I think we actually got to play a game in this Lopez. But this is like exactly the Wike when they sort of like tricked us a little with the COVID. Yeah, then like I was infected, then I wasn't, but then I was finally.
Yeah, I
And
was also. I
yeah,
remember that you had to withdraw a few rounds before the end, or maybe even only 1 round before the end. But
no, many round for then.
it was many rounds. Yeah, we played the
Yeah, I
game.
think it was like literally middle of the tournament, like 5 years maybe to go. 5 years, 5 rounds to go.
Yeah, we played this like anti-martial, which was kind of, I mean, it was semi-interesting, but not very eventful in the end.
Yeah.
And then I was also thinking, like, how are you going to be able to play Grand Prix, which is starting more or less immediately after, if now you have
Yeah.
this kind of like quarantine or whatever, whatever you're forced to go through. And also my coach there, Chuchulov, was also tested positive. So like each day I'm going through this kind of circus of tests, like 3 tests every day. And I
Yeah, it
was
was
like,
very,
yeah,
very
is this
special.
really worth it, to play some chess?
But I remember it was actually hysterical because I got to know their sort of routine with the COVID and quarantine. And it was actually fantastic. They told me that, yeah, your quarantine sort of goes for like, say, I think it was like 8 days or something. But let's say 8. And then if it's 8, I actually don't make the Grand Prix. Which is what I said. And they said, look, but you can actually count days from like the first day when you felt the symptoms, not from the first negative test. And I was like, yeah, look, I lost this game against Grandelius, it's very symptomatic, right? And then I sort of make it.
Yeah, it's the math during COVID was quite crazy. Yeah, everything was quite crazy. But
yeah, I actually still think like even this like whole story with Anish. I mean, I know
Which
people for some reason.
Which story with
like
Anish?
People. No, I mean when I like as they say, I refuse to play Anish or something. I mean, I know people for some reason like to say that I'm insane or something, yeah, but I still think it's kind of like it was not absurd on my side. So the way I look at it, it was that someone from my team got infected. So I had to play Anish the very next day. Then obviously, like, we are 3. That person like went to quarantine immediately. So we obviously understand it's like very likely that both of the remaining 2 are infected as well, right? Kind of makes sense, as we would spend a lot of time together. Then the organizers came to me and they said, look, you will have a test like early in the morning before the game. And then like when you go to the game, we will actually know if you are positive or not. Sure. Then indeed we had to wake up. You probably remember those like early wake ups, yeah, for the test, like 7 a.m. or something.
I mean, I did this once.
Yeah.
We played it in Weigensee, but they said, okay, you have to go to Beverwijk for a test because they have no testing facility in Weigensee, so it's like 30-minute drive, let's say, or maybe 20 minutes. So okay, you wake up at, I mean, you have to leave at 8 o'clock, and then you get your test, you wait there, maybe it takes an hour, hour and a half, whatever it takes, and then you'll make it for your game, more or less. And I was thinking, oh, yeah, of course I'll make it for my game, but I also, this is absurd to do, yeah, before a game.
Yeah, but my case was even more absurd. So we woke up at like whatever it was, like 7 a.m. or something. So we went for the test, both of us. We did it. So then we were back, and then they came. So the game starts at like whatever 3, yeah, normally. They came at 1 p.m. and they said, "Look, so the result of your test is not going to come before the night. So what we sort of think the right way is you play the game wearing a mask." Which, like, to me, I still find it absurd, because like it's absurd either way. Like, it's either I'm negative, and I remember them actually having this even like written down that you cannot be forced to wear the mask like during the game. You actually had to wear it while like on your way to the toilet or something.
While walking, yeah.
Yeah. But like it's kind of absurd. Like if I'm negative, then it doesn't make any sense. If I'm positive, then it's like a little bit. I mean, it's absurd. Like even towards Anish, who had to play the same Grand Prix. And obviously, given the situation, it's very likely that I'm positive. And then, I mean, like, I'm not a COVID expert, but like wearing one mask for like one long game didn't feel like sort of enough protection to me. And I actually asked them, I said, it's a bit absurd. Maybe we can reschedule it. They said no. I said, well, it's like I found it absurd that I was actually trying to sort of protect Anish, who is actually from Netherlands, and they're from Netherlands. I'm like trying to help their champion to sort of remain alive. But they said no. Then I said, all right, I still find it absurd, then I will not play. They said, all right, it's your decision, we'll take this. Like, we wanted you to play. It was like your decision and stuff. I was like, sure, do whatever you want. Then I skipped, I think, one game. Then the test actually turned out to be negative. So I was back. I played, I think, 1 or 2 more games. And then I did another one and it was positive. After which they locked me in. And then, this is the funniest part. Then I had to spend like a week there or something like that. Like each morning I would go and do the test. And of course, like all the rest were negative. So like altogether I did like 11. I had 1 positive one and 10 negatives. Which, like, given the law back then, would mean you're still locked in. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, crazy times. And then obviously immediately after the war started, you mentioned it, difficult to play when that happens, difficult to play when your country is involved in that.
It's actually very annoying that you have this episode with me, yeah, because I forgot to say actually, but I have this routine for a very long time actually, that like every single time I have a flight, I download like all the episodes that I missed. You guys are actually doing a fantastic job, I have to say.
Thank you.
And Fabi, I mean, okay, maybe like sometimes you're not like 100% open, but this is still like by far the most like sincere and professional expertise that is out there.
All right, let's talk about cheating for 10 more minutes.
Actually, that you mentioned that in regards to cheating also, because of like I actually tried to be 100% open with my kind of thoughts about cheating, but then there was like so much kind of, online stuff which I couldn't really ignore completely. I can ignore some, but I couldn't ignore completely. That I just thought, okay, am I getting paid to be the anti? I mean, I understand. Okay, Vladimir's approach. Yeah, even he probably went quite a bit too far. But like, he's still doing it. He's not getting paid for it. Yeah, he's like trying to be kind of the anti-cheating face. And I decided I didn't really want this.
It also depends on the way you look at it. Yeah, we can actually make this a business. Yeah, you text me privately, then like you sort of accuse me of cheating. I will just say you're an idiot or something. Then we'll have this clash of claims. Someone will pay like whatever 40k, And then we will
Yeah.
shake hands in the end, and we'll make sure like season 2 happens.
I think you need Clash
But
of
this was
Clans
one
too.
of the things that
Yes.
annoyed me about, like, okay, this, let's say, Kramnik's crusade. I mean, for sure he's wrong about many things and also right about some things. But then I felt like there's no conclusion. Like he plays a match, everyone gets paid, and then we're waiting for the answer. Like, what was the claim?
Yeah,
Who
exactly.
and then there's nothing. It's just okay, life goes on, and now we'll focus on a different person and another clash of claims maybe. But I mean, in that case, it just seems pointless to me.
You were
Yeah,
kind
I
of ahead of the curve, yeah. I don't remember exactly when did you do that video with Kachov about cheating.
Many years ago, actually, like 10 years ago, maybe.
I think it was way before cheating became like a real thing, yeah. And at that point, it was like over the board cheating, more or less. Like your video
I think
was
it
about
was.
over the board cheating.
I mean, it could be there even back then. It's just that now it's so sort of.
It's
I mean, it's
embedded,
so
yeah.
all over the place that you cannot ignore it. But still, I mean, you only sort of spot it when it's obvious. Like the real problem is that, look, there are some sort of obvious cases where, I mean, most often you cannot prove it, but you can at least suspect things. But the main like problem for me is that, like, imagine someone like me or Fabi starts to cheat like once in 4 games for like 2 moves. This will be sort of important enough for us to like improve dramatically, given the like scale. But still, like, we will not be stockfish. Like, there is no way you prove it. Like, if I just get this option of like playing, let's say, 3 times in 4 games, playing the best move in the position, or even like I get this option of like getting a notification if like the evil changed a lot and I'm winning. Like, you don't even need to tell me the move, just tell me I'm winning now. Like, I need to think now. This will actually, like, it will obviously increase the chances of such person a lot. Like, I would say, like, if one of us plays Magnus on these terms, I don't know, I would feel like Magnus is not favorite. Fabi would be, I think, a clear favorite against him then. With me, I mean, it would be close probably. Like, if every time Magnus blunders,
I mean,
know
I think
it,
there's
like,
better ways.
especially, huh?
Like if you want to destroy Magnus, and let's say in your example with Takashov, you had like the earpiece, yeah?
Yeah.
So if you have that technology, which you're ready to go to some lengths to get and make that second person, which obviously carries some risks, then I think, like I tested this with like there was a famous case in 2020 in this Pro Chess League with the famous namesake of a world champion.
Yeah.
And so after this, because I was directly playing him, and I immediately felt it after the game. And you can even see a video like I turned to someone and I'm saying some words, which was basically I was working with Rustam during this tournament, and I told him like, okay, the guy was cheating. Like I immediately felt it after the game.
I have a feeling Rustam didn't say he was not. The way
He wasn't,
Rustam,
because he was looking at game and there were some mistakes and ups and downs. But then we just started to discuss it. This also led to him being a bit more on the paranoid side as well, and me. And we decided to test over the board, like more or less, I'm kind of playing with engine, and he knows it, and he's playing himself. And then I just played some bullshit, and then we sent the game to some other grandmaster and asked like, what do you think about this game? Okay, some random game looks like pretty poor quality. And basically what I did was just, it wasn't even like looking at engine moves like I choose here. I'm always looking at the engine and then choosing some mistakes, which are complicated, but playing them quickly. And just, he would collapse like every 2 moves, more or less. He would make a game-ending blunder every 2 moves. And then I would always let him off the hook consistently to the point that like the bar is just like some kind of, up and down. And then eventually I win when he finally makes some very major blunder. So there would be no way to tell. Like you wouldn't suspect at all. It would even look, you might even describe it as a human game, like up and down, full of kind of adventures. But I had control
But that's
because
exactly what that's exactly what I'm saying. And imagine like someone only needs one game of this kind a year. Like even over the board, let's say, imagine, I mean, we have the talks about like Hans, or I mean, we used to talk about Topolov, like nothing is proven, like in both cases, but at least you have the talks, like the suspicions are there, you can believe it or not, but at least like there is a case. But imagine there is just a guy who plays some European individual championship, and he simply wants to qualify to the World Cup, and he knows +4 is enough. And the guy is like, I don't know, 2580 or 2610, whatever. And he simply decides to like keep his +2. And then with 2 rounds to go, he knows like last 2 rounds he's actually going to cheat. Then he does it twice. He makes it. He finishes like 15th or whatever. The tournament is over. He's not like even in the pedestal.
Basically, nobody
Like,
suspects him.
there are, I think, so many cases that we don't even sort of consider investigating into.
Nobody suspects him at that point.
Yeah, I mean, exactly. Like everything we sort of like investigate and get paranoid about is something very, very obvious. Like when someone wins the tournament, then, like, I'm not saying it's always cheating, but of course it kind of brings your attention to it. But then, I mean, imagine someone just wants to be like 27-30 like all the time. So he will just, I mean, let's say like I had to keep my, say like I'll be 2750. I just have this like general like idea about my life that I want to keep my 2750. Maybe I mean it guarantees me like Grandchester or whatever. Like I need it for some reason. Then I'll just play by myself, like as long as like I'm not under, I don't know, 2735. If it happens for some reason, then I just like cheat 3 games at some point, 3 or 4. Then I get back and I'm back to playing myself. And you have to understand that it's like pretty likely that I will not even need it. It's just a backup option. So those are the things that people don't even sort of think about, but this is the thing, the main worry. I mean, cool, you found someone who like left a letter, basically signed it, you know, like I need this phone for cheating, thank you, Kirill, please don't touch it. I mean, brilliant, yeah, but I mean, if someone is a bit more intelligent, then I don't even see, and also less greedy in some sense, then I don't even see how you can sort of find it out.
Yeah, I think we basically only
Yeah,
like
go ahead.
the only way we've caught people is with hard evidence. Like, you know, Feller case, for example, was because some text messages were uncovered and it was 3 people and some conspiracy and fell apart. And okay, with Shevchenko, then yeah, you have like some actual hard evidence, which is completely unimaginable if someone is thinking straight. You know,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
how
No,
can you
but
do
like
this?
even with Feller, say imagine like Feller actually did it many times. But say imagine you just go to the Olympiad. It happens like once in 2 years, right? I mean, given the circumstances, I don't really care. So probably once in 2 years. So just imagine, like you have this option of cheating in like 2 games within 2 years. You just do it twice. I mean, you have a very strong team. You actually don't need too much. You basically just need to know that you're going to win, let's say, against India and against China or someone else. You figure it out there. It does not even guarantee your team the win, but it like increases the chances dramatically.
No, it's true.
Like
If you're not
imagine,
greedy, then
yeah, I mean
really
exactly. Like
couldn't
if you're
cheat.
fine with sort of increasing your chances, not making them like 100%, but like making them like giving yourself extra 25%. Like say, what happens if you had beaten Gukesh this time?
Well, if I'd beaten Kukesh, then we would have beaten India actually, because a draw, I was calculating during the game, like a draw is not going to be enough, because we had to
you
beat
win
them.
the Olympiad, yeah, at that point.
Well, no, we beat India. We don't win the Olympiad, but we we certainly go a long way towards winning the Olympiad if we win that
Yeah,
match.
but then you start leading, right? You're like in a shared lead, or maybe even you're the only leader.
I guess it would come. We would be shared, but it would come down to tie breaks. Yeah, whatever that would be.
Yeah,
I mean, I
but
don't know about tie.
Still, like increases your chances massively, right?
Oh, for sure. Yeah,
Yes, that's exactly what I'm talking about. Like one game once in 2 years can actually change it all. Like if there is someone smart enough to do it like rarely, then there is no way. Like you cannot prove that some very, very strong players couldn't play like his best game when he needed it the most. I mean, it obviously happens from time to time in a fair way. There is nothing you can do about it. Yeah.
Fabi, I think you probably have to bounce. So
Yeah, I do.
The discussion was only getting spicy, but we have to end it at this point. Perhaps we can resume it later in 2025. It's an interesting discussion. 2025 awaits us.
The issue, I'll just say one small thing, is that it's interesting from, like, let's say, philosophical point of view, but from a practical point of view, I really think we lost the battle if there was a battle in the first place. Because
I couldn't agree more.
Nobody talks about it anymore. I mean, there's some obvious case, okay, phone in the bathroom, and then people talk for a few days. But as like systematic issues, I don't see any discussions. Maybe behind the scenes, but definitely not in a public sphere, except for Kramnik, who doesn't get, like, he only really damages himself at this point, I think, by continuing what he's doing. And I don't see any like positive, like, it doesn't seem like he's making progress in terms of implementing some changes that would make chess more resilient towards cheating. So if there was a battle, I think we kind of lost it. But from kind of point of view of like, if it happens, when it happens, how much, then it's a very interesting topic, of course.
Still, it's probably not the topic we want to sort of. I mean, it's probably good you have to go, yeah? Everybody else. No, but what we are even talking about is sort of obvious. Like, it's kind of absurd to deny that if James Bond wanted to be the world chess champion, he would have like easily become one. Like, if someone sort of invests like 50K and like knows the rules of the game, he can basically do whatever he wants. Like at this stage.
Yeah, if you're a good player and you put the effort and like you don't have the morals to stop yourself, then
yeah, this I forgot to mention actually.
No, I think for some people, like, it's just unthinkable. Like, if you told me, like, I don't know, you take Boris Gelfand and you offer him like $1 million, just cheat once. Like, I don't think he would do it. Like, for him, probably just unthinkable as moral, from a moral point of view. But for some people, of course, it's not unthinkable. They would be willing to do it, as we know.
Yeah.
Cool. All right, let's leave it at that, boys. Good chat. Thanks, Daniel, for coming on. And,
yeah, thank you guys for having me one more time.
Thank you.
Yeah, we'll see you in New York in just a few days.
Yeah, cool.
Cheers, guys. Have a good one. Bye.